Well, welcome back to the Off-Farm Income Podcast, everybody. Thank you so much for being here on our YouTube channel. Well, today we are going back to Illinois, and we are going to ask the question, how can you be active in high school with extracurricular activities like being involved in clubs and music and sports and things like that, and also be an active FFA member? Sophia Reavley is coming on to talk to us all about that and gives us a great answer for how to accomplish it. Let's get that started for you right now. Joining me today is Sophia Reavley, and she is coming to us from Illinois State College, where she is majoring in crop and soil science, and she is still serving in the FFA as a section president, and she's also a former chapter vice president at Havana High School in Havana, Illinois. So, Sophia, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming on.
Hi, thank you for having me.
You bet. My goodness, your resume that I'm reading off there to begin is a mouthful. I almost ran out of breath. How'd you do all of that?
Yeah, I was very active in high school. I tried to do as much as I possibly could.
Well, that is fantastic. Well, I am excited to speak with you. I'd like to start off just by asking a few questions just about who you are so our audience can kind of get to know who they're listening to. Would that be okay?
Yeah.
All right. Well, how old are you now?
I am 18.
Okay. Now, when you're not at school, when you are home, are you on a farm? Are you in town? Or would you describe where you live as something kind of in the middle of those two?
I'm in town, but our town's pretty small, so you can't go too far without hitting cornfields.
All right, Illinois cornfields. Very good. And how long have you been participating in the FFA?
Since my freshman year of high school, so this will be year 5.
Year 5. Okay. Very good. So what made you join the group? What brought you in?
Well, my 8th grade year, actually, the advisor at the high school came to the junior high during an ag day just to talk about FFA and kind of explain what the ag department was at the high school. And at the time, I was really interested in equine therapy, so it made sense to me to sign up for Intro to Ag my freshman year. And through freshman year, I tried to do as many CDEs that I could, and I absolutely loved it, so I kept with it.
Kept with it. Well, very cool. So equine therapy, is that like using horses to help people with anxiety and things like that, or am I thinking of something different?
Yeah, exactly like that. I went to some horse camps, and they talked about it, and I thought it was really interesting. I soon learned I didn't want to do that.
Sure.
But it was really cool. Yeah.
Now, when you started your freshman year, you describe all the different career development events that you did. What led you to do that? Why did you do so many in your first year in the FFA?
Well, in my Intro to Ag class, there was about 4 freshmen that my teacher was really like, hey, you should, since it's your freshman year, just go in, do as much as you can, and see what you like best. And so part of me was like, well, I'll get to learn new things, which I love doing, and I get out of school. So I went to as much as I could. Okay,
very good. Well, I always like to ask about the career development events because they're very interesting in that I never got to do one. I was not an FFA member in high school, but when I got to college, I got to do a couple internships, and the internships were really valuable to me, not in helping me pick a career, but in helping me identify what I did not want to do and kind of checking something off the list and going, no, I don't want to do that. And I always, now that I get to interview so many FFA students and I've learned so much about the FFA, I feel like career development events, they might expose you to a career you want to do in the future, but I think just as equally important is they may expose you to something where you go, well, I don't want to do that in the future. Did you have a similar experience to that?
Yeah, definitely. I remember going to livestock judging and being so excited because I loved animals, didn't really know what I was judging, but I thought it was going to be fun. And I soon realized that I was really bad at it and I probably shouldn't do it. But I loved studying for agronomy and learning the crops and the seeds.
Okay.
So that's what I'm doing now.
So that's the one that stuck and that's led you to this crop and soil science major. Okay. Yep. Very good. Now, you eventually became an officer, so what made you want to do that and go up to that, take on that additional responsibility?
Yeah, so After my freshman year, there was about half of the officer team were seniors, so they were leaving.
Mm-hmm.
And so my advisor was like, hey, if all the freshmen want to run and try for it, you really like the CDEs. And I really liked planning things and kind of knowing what happened behind the scenes. So it just made sense to run for that chapter office.
Okay. All right, very good. And then that obviously stuck. You worked your way up to chapter vice president, and then you've been a section officer twice, with this being currently serving as section president. This is your second year as a section officer, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So then how does that work? You're a chapter officer, and you go to a nominating committee or something like that, and you throw your hat in the ring and say, I'd like to be a section officer?
Yeah, pretty much. So there was a section officer info night,
Mm-hmm.
and you went and kind of learned what the officer team does and how they run the section. And you sent in a resume that showed all of your FFA activities and your out of FFA activities, so the delegates could kind of get to see who you were behind the scenes.
Okay.
And then at banquet, you gave speeches. Your first speech was your longest, and then you just gave a speech for each office you wanted to run. And delegates from every school in the section voted on who they wanted as their section officers.
Okay, very good. So you were selected after giving speeches, and other people, that maybe even people that you hadn't met yet, were hearing what you had to say, and they selected you.
Yep.
Okay, very good. So when you went from the chapter level to the section level as an officer, how did things change for you? Was it just one more meeting, or was there more responsibility? Was there travel involved? How did that all change?
Yeah, there was a lot more responsibility, especially because I was section reporter.
Mm-hmm.
So I ran our Facebook pages and made sure to keep everyone updated on CDEs or meeting changes and highlighting our members. And then we also had some conferences and FFA weeks that I got to participate in the first time.
Okay.
So I got to go around to almost all the schools in the section and give a chapter visit.
Okay, very good. Now, with that said, you're still serving, you're still actively involved in the FFA. So what changes when you become a section president?
A lot. So the state is divided into 25 sections,
Mm-hmm.
and each of those sections has a team. And then the president is a part of the major state officer team with the 5 major state presidents. So I am in charge of running pretty much everything in the section. And then we also have state events where we help with like state proficiency awards or state CDE competitions,
Mm-hmm.
where all of the section presidents are the ones leading the groups and handling out, giving the papers to who needs the papers for all of the information.
Okay, interesting. Now, are you going to be seeking your American degree as you go forward?
Yes, I plan to.
Very cool. Well, good for you. Man, you've accomplished a lot just in the FFA. We haven't even talked about your supervised agricultural experience yet. Let's do this. I want to acknowledge all of the different FFA advisors who've been part of your journey. If you could, let us know who those folks are.
Yeah, so my first advisor was Miss Rachel Skeen, and then she ended up moving schools, and I now currently have Mr. Phil Foster.
All right. Well, thank you so much for acknowledging those folks. Now I'm going to take a moment really quick, Sophia, and acknowledge a couple great sponsors we have on this show. And everybody, I want to start off talking about Powder River Livestock Handling Equipment. They have just been a great sponsor for a long, long time now. And boy, I couldn't be more proud to have them be involved with our show here and to be a sponsor. And I will tell you what, and I say it all the time, but I mean it every single time I say it, they developed their livestock handling equipment out here in the West with some of the wildest cattle that you would ever encounter. And they did it over 80 years ago. They've been perfecting it ever since. And man, do they have fantastic equipment that can reduce stress, reduce potential for injury, and create the safest possible environment for handlers when they're working cattle, period. And if they can do that with those type of cattle that we have out here in the West, they can certainly do it for the cattle that you have in your herd. We hope you'll go out and check them out at powderriver.com and let your local farm and ranch retailer know that you would like to have Powder River equipment in their yard, so you have the option of getting that as well. And of course, I want to mention lacrossefootwear.com. As Sophia and I are recording this, we are just in a period of just abnormal moisture here in Idaho where our farm is at, and everything is either snow covered or the next day completely just doused in mud. And I have constantly got my Alpha Range boots on while I am working outside. And I will tell you what, I constantly have dry, warm, and comfortable feet. And you could too if you were wearing the Alpha Range. We certainly hope you will. And of course, I always love to mention while we're doing our FFA episodes that Lacrosse Footwear is a proud sponsor and proud to support the FFA by annually sponsoring 15 scholarships along with 100 jackets as part of the Give the Gift of Blue program. So we certainly hope that you will value what Lacrosse Footwear is doing for this show as well as the FFA, just as much as we do here at Off Farm Income, and you will put a pair on your feet. Check them out at lacrossefootwear.com. All right, Sophia, let's talk about your supervised agricultural experience. What have you been doing there?
So I worked at Prairie Ridge Veterinary Clinic in my hometown of Savannah for about 3 years while I was in high school. I was a kennel assistant on the weekend. So if any dogs were boarding or cats, I took care of them in the morning. And then if we had appointments, I kind of served as the vet tech role of holding the animal and making sure everyone stayed safe and everyone was good. And then I would come back in periodically through the weekend and walk the dogs and take care of all of our boarding animals.
Okay, interesting. How did you find yourself working at this vet clinic?
Well, the vet, Dr. Rodney Yetter, he goes to church with my family, and his daughter was a senior when I was a freshman in high school, and we were in band together and youth group, and we were friends. And when she was graduating from high school, he asked me at church one day if I would be interested in taking her spot at the vet clinic and helping him out there. And I said sure, because I loved animals, and of course we use him as our vet, so I kind of already knew what went on at the vet clinic, and I started soon after that.
All right. Now, had you ever worked around animals in the sense of them having surgeries or anything like that prior to going to work at this vet clinic?
No, I had not. This was my first time with that sort of thing.
So did that make you nervous at all? Was there anything that you were worried about, like you might become squeamish when you did it or when you assisted with it or anything like that?
Yeah, I was a little bit nervous. I've never been squeamish of needles or blood or anything, but it's a whole nother story when an animal comes in that is injured and you're just starting surgery right away. So there was a few times where it got kind of scary just because so many things could go wrong.
Yeah, it is interesting. Doctors and veterinarians alike, they have to do it. And they've got to have kind of those nerves to be able to do those things, even though if it goes wrong, it could be catastrophic, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Interesting. So how did your responsibilities at the vet clinic grow over time?
Well, when I first started there, if a dog or a cat or anyone boarding needed insulin or any sort of medicine, I really didn't mess with any of that, even if it was a routine, give it to them every morning sort of thing. And then towards the end of my time working there, if they needed a pill or anything, Dr. Yetter would let me administer it to them while he wasn't there. So it was nice to be able to know that he trusted me to do that sort of thing.
Absolutely. And all of this trust and all of this experience, it led you to being a proficiency winner in the state of Illinois, correct?
Yes, it did.
What proficiency award did you receive?
Just veterinary science. It's the only record book that I have.
Okay. So that was the state proficiency award, or Illinois State Proficiency Award in vet science. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So when you are documenting a placement SAE like you had, did it fall under placement or did it fall under research?
It was placement.
Okay, so when you're documenting a placement SAE like you had, doing something like vet science, what kind of things do you put in the book that you think made you stand out in terms of this proficiency award?
I think what mostly made me stand out was I would always make sure I put down the name of the animal that would come in for their regular checkup or anything. And I think it made it look different enough from day to day each Saturday, knowing the exact names of the dogs or the cats. And then I also made sure to put in there every time that I developed an x-ray or did all the steps to do a heartworm test or anything like that. I made sure that the committee knew that I did those steps by myself.
Okay.
And that Dr. Yetter trusted me to do them. And I think that's what helped make my book stand out.
Very good. So they always say that if you don't tell people about your accomplishments and what you're doing, nobody else is going to. So it's like this fine line when you're doing something like applying for a proficiency award. You don't want to be braggadocious necessarily, but you also don't want to have anybody overlook some of your accomplishments. So you've kind of got to walk that fine line, it sounds like.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Okay. Well, good job. Congratulations. I think to be named number one in the state in any proficiency area is pretty incredible. I'm sure there was great competition for you there.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it was really fun getting to meet the other girls that I was competing against.
Mm-hmm.
It was a good experience.
Very cool. Now, you mentioned at the beginning of the interview how active you were in high school, and then you mentioned again being part of the youth club, being in the band, so things that were not necessarily FFA involved. And I want to ask you this for selfish reasons. So my daughter, she's in 8th grade. She just had the FFA advisor come and speak to her class the other day. She's going to be an FFA member when she goes to high school next year, but she's got a bunch of other interests, sports, orchestra, things like that. How did you balance everything it takes to not only be in the FFA, but to be an officer and then a section officer with your other interests and all the other activities that you wanted to be involved in high school?
It was rough, I'm going to be honest. But what I tried to do is I knew FFA was something that I wanted to carry with me for the rest of my life. So I always made school top priority and FFA second priority. And in all the other clubs I was in, I purposefully didn't want to be an officer every year or fully be running it, because I knew if I was in charge of multiple things, I wouldn't be able to be the best that I could be at the things that I really was passionate about. So I played sports and was in a whole bunch of clubs, but I made sure that I knew what I needed to do for FFA, and I got it done.
Got you. So that's very good. So actually that's very wise and insightful, considering you started doing this when you were a freshman in high school, but you prioritized your interests, and then you based how active you got in each of those interests based on where they were in the priority level, is what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really well done. I don't think I would have been capable of that in high school. So really well done. Well, here you are now. So you're majoring in crop and soil science. You really enjoyed studying that. Have you looked at potential careers that you could have with this degree, and kind of, does something stand out as something that you would like to pursue?
I have a little bit. I'm currently in a chemistry class, and it's really intriguing. So I feel I might go more towards the research route and the getting samples from farms and taking it back to labs and trying to figure out how we can have farmers have higher yields is where I think I'll be going, but it's still up in the air.
Very cool. Well, there's a ton out there. I'm fortunate enough that I get to host another podcast for Pioneer Seeds. It's called Corn Revolution, and we've done 2 seasons, and I have interviewed a lot of people who are working in the field, and they're doing test plots. They're doing exactly what you're talking about, and focused in, of course, on the seeds that Pioneer produces, but the different hybrid seeds for corn, soybeans, wheat, things like that. And they love what they do. As you say that, I started picturing that for you in my mind.
That would be awesome, yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Well, this has been great, Sophia. Thank you so much for coming on today and sharing all of this. And hey, best of luck to you going forward.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you for being here, everybody, and thank you to Sophia Reavley for coming on and sharing that information with us today. And as always, enjoy your journey to the ultimate lifestyle business, agriculture.